All right, let's dive into something that affects every single business on the planet, from the corner store to the biggest tech companies. We're talking about the business environment, all those hidden forces that can make or break a company. If you're studying business, this is one of the most important concepts to get your head around. So, I'm going to start with a pretty weird question. Are you, right now, secretly a manager? It might sound a little crazy, but stick with me, because I'm willing to bet the answer is yes. You're probably already using these skills every single day. Just think about school for a second. You have to choose your subjects, right? You have to manage your schedule, deal with school rules, and figure out how to work with different teachers and classmates. You're constantly making decisions inside a system you don't fully control. Well, that's management. And it's the exact same mindset you need to run a business. So, what is this business environment we're talking about? Well, the textbook definition is basically all the conditions surrounding a business. But here's the most important part to remember. It's split into two big buckets. There's the stuff you can control, and then there's the stuff you absolutely can't. And this is a really great way to visualize it. Think of it like a roadmap. On one side, you have your internal influences. These are like the levers and dials inside your own company that you can adjust. On the other side, you have the external influences. These are the big, unpredictable waves you have to learn how to ride. Let's start with the things you can actually control. So, let's step inside the four walls of our imaginary business. As the manager, this is your turf. These are the areas where you call the shots and your decisions really, truly matter. You get to decide what you're selling, where you set up shop, and what resources you're working with. That means your people, your tech, your cash. And just as important, you set the tone. How do you lead your team? What's the vibe of the place? Is it super creative and a bit chaotic, or is it more structured and traditional? All these choices define who you are as a business. Okay, so you've got your internal world dialed in. But now for the really tough part. Because no matter how brilliant you are, there are massive forces happening outside your business that can change the game in a heartbeat. Let's make this real. Imagine you're the manager of a super popular local cafe. You've nailed everything inside. The coffee's amazing, the staff are fantastic, the location is perfect. You're killing it. But your cafe doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? The world outside your door is always changing. And one of the biggest forces out there is the economy itself. It's kind of like a roller coaster. Sometimes you're in a boom period where everyone has jobs, money's flowing, and people are happy to spend $5 on a latte. But then it can dip into a bust or a recession where people get nervous, they tighten their belts, and suddenly that daily coffee is a luxury they cut back on. And I mean, we don't need to imagine a scenario like that, do we? We all just lived through a perfect, if terrifying, example. The COVID-19 pandemic was this massive external shock that nobody saw coming and nobody could control. It threw the global economy into a tailspin almost overnight. And what happened? The way we all lived and behaved changed. With lockdowns everywhere, the social habit of grabbing a coffee or eating out vanished. For a traditional cafe, that's a huge threat. But it was a massive opportunity for delivery companies like Deliveroo, who were perfectly positioned for this new world. So you can see how two powerful external forces can hit you at the same time. The economic downturn meant people had less money to spend, and the social changes completely shifted how they spent the money they did have. For a business manager, that is a serious double whammy. Now, these big forces like the economy or social trends can feel a bit abstract, but sometimes the biggest external influence is something much more direct. Let's look at what happens when a powerful new competitor rolls into town. So put yourself in the shoes of a manager at a big Australian supermarket a couple of decades ago. For years, things were pretty stable. You really only had one main rival to worry about. Then, out of nowhere, a global giant named Aldi, with a completely different way of doing things, announces it's coming to Australia. Your entire competitive world just got turned upside down. And Aldi didn't just show up with a big splash and disappear. They played the long game. This was a slow, steady external pressure. They started in Sydney in 2001, then moved to Victoria, then Queensland, and so on. Year after year, they were changing the entire grocery market. And the impact was just huge. Before Aldi, the market was basically what you'd call an oligopoly. That's a fancy term for when just a couple of big companies call all the shots. Price competition wasn't that intense. After Aldi showed up, the price wars began. This was fantastic for shoppers, but for the existing supermarkets, it was a massive wake-up call. They had to adapt or risk losing out. So we've looked at the things you can control inside your business and the wild, unpredictable forces outside of it. What is the single biggest lesson here? What's the main takeaway for anyone studying business? It's this: you cannot afford to stick your head in the sand. Ignoring what's happening in the wider world, ignoring those external influences, well, it has very real and sometimes very final consequences. This quote really says it all. The businesses that see change coming, that lean into it and adapt, they're the ones that are going to thrive. The ones that fight it, that pretend it isn't happening, they're the ones that get left behind. It's as simple as that. Adapting isn't a choice, it's the key to survival. Look, at the end of the day, being a manager doesn't mean you can control the weather. You can't stop an economic storm or a new competitor from showing up. Your job is to focus on what you can control: your product, your people, your culture, to build a business that's strong and agile enough to navigate any storm. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. What do you think the next big storm will be? What's going to be the biggest influence on business over the next decade?